say that same barrier again?
No, we're done.
Is it? Okay, yeah, it looks like it.
It's clocking now.
Okay,
I don't
good.
know what happened then. 'Cause I thought
Thanks,
you-
Jeremy, I
that's
appreciate
right.
it. Yeah, no, I thought I did
Did
Did you
hit
see
it.
that it was off?
No, I didn't see you push it, so I just.
Oh,
Oh, no, I
good.
pushed it, I
He
just
had,
did a crummy
yeah.
job, clearly. Which is why I should not be in charge of the owl. All right, well, for the purpose of the owl, we have opened the meeting, we've approved the agenda. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Justin, second by Paul. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, any dissension? Nope. Passed unanimously, and again, anything that passed unanimously will be considered to have waiving the second reading that was required for it. So kind of put that disclaimer out. And as always, if someone wants to comment on something, we don't wait till just the public comment. If you'd like to, just make sure we can recognize you and we'll see it. I think the only person here is Brian and Jeremy, so we're okay. Recognition of the public we discussed. Report of the chairman, I will say for me, as we're starting to focus on budget for next year, I've begun discussions with Miss Judy about a 5-year operational for her or a 20-year capital. She was one of the ones that hadn't been able to submit it yet, so we're kind of working along. And then the vast majority of all the other departments have submitted that. Hopefully we can go this year with it. And David will address it, but again, we had talked about a goal of 4% COLA at some point this year between now and July. He's going to kind of update us on the numbers in his report. And like I said, we're just going to wait, obviously, until the first of the year before we decide to do anything for this part so far, and with the idea that we will hopefully be in a good shape too for July. But it is our intention to try and catch people back up. That is all I've got right now at this time. Defer to Mr. County Mayor.
No report, sir.
All right, David?
The first item that's sitting on your table is the Highway Public Works analysis for the cash flow, which the state comptroller's asked us to present to the county commission. If you look at it, each month has been considerably much more than what we had feared. Predominantly that we believe that's the result of the gas tax doing better than we anticipated. It's actually doing fairly well at this point. Not as good as it would be doing if COVID hadn't happened, but better than anybody would anticipate. The second item is just the financial statement memo, and it's discussing that the financial statements for this past month of October will be available at the evening of the county commission meeting. And that's the end of my report, Mr. Chairman.
For old business, David, did you want to say anything about COLA?
Well, I've actually got several handouts, and because we're going to be discussing COLA and everybody is concerned about revenues, where we're at, if nobody objects, I'm actually going to pass that out with the COLA. I pulled the revenue analysis off under my report and just going to include it with it because they kind of tie hand in hand. I'm sorry, I'm handing out mine. Let me hand the, I'm sorry, Mr. David. These are actually some extra copies. Here's the actual copies. These are the revenues. These are the general fund, and I'll pass out highway. Sorry, I went the wrong direction. Passing out there. There you go.
You get one?
There you go, good sir.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Will, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you.
Foster. Oh, and there's Miss Dennis way back there.
Well, thanks.
There you go. Yeah, I'm walking back there with you.
Yeah, I think I got them all.
I don't think I gave Mrs. Lee.
I heard Miss Judy forever. Oh, I don't know. I thought David had
Okay.
something else he passed up to.
There should be 3 packets in everybody's hand at this point. I managed to mess mine up really good. But the first one we should probably look at would actually be the revenue analysis. At first glance, if we reprojected the revenues as of today, I would show a little more than $1 million more than we'd anticipated. However, if you look at the note on the bottom, we actually budgeted a little over $2 million more of unassigned fund balance than we do in a typical year. So right now we have made up some ground, but we're not where we would be if we had not had COVID. Also, if you look Under the license and permit, that's, I made sure to note that. One of the reasons that I believe that they are doing so good on the license and permits is because at this point, they've actually picked up the natural gas permits down in Gallatin, and they've actually picked up the planning regions for Gallatin's, Hendersonville, and Portland, which that has added quite a bit of work down in the building and codes. So I actually noted that out because I'm not sure they can continue to hold that workload and produce the revenue without some of that funds being used to actually increase their staffing. So looking at it on the top, we're doing much better than anticipated. About 300-some thousand, that's due with changes in the amount of work. When we take that 700,000 in, we're still about 1.3 million below where we'd be in a typical year, but we're doing much better than anticipated. When we go to the next one, it should be, right behind there should be the Highway Public Works Fund. If we rebudgeted those as of today, I would anticipate that we'd pick up at least $500,000 more than we had earlier. But as I'm saying, we also budgeted, or Ms. Judy did, quite a bit of fund balance, so we're still not quite to a typical year. The two things are the collectibilities and property tax is doing better than anticipated, and the gas tax is doing better than we had feared quite a bit. Taking the current trend and taking 15% off, I'd still see a $500,000 pickup. So we're not doing bad. The first month we collected actually did pretty well. The last 2 months have been down, but not as much as we had feared. And the last one is the debt service fund. It's doing pretty well also, and it's doing well because of a couple of reasons. One is sales tax. Most of you are probably aware there were some changes in the sales tax statutes, and I think the County Mayors Association probably was one of them had a lot of what
They
to do
got
with
us the
that.
internet tax, which was huge.
We picked up internet sales tax, so we're significantly above where we'd even anticipate being if there was no COVID. But looking at that, you've also got to think we're really high, and I believe we'll maintain a higher level because of internet sales, but I'm not sure we'll maintain at this level because with Davidson being shut down, I believe we picked up some sales tax on that end, we'll eventually lose. So I think we have picked up a lot of internet sales, but I think we're skewed right now because of Davidson County. And also adequate facilities taxes are doing pretty well at this point, but who knows how long that'll maintain.
David, a question for you. When you talk about the debt service, we anticipated when we issued this large amount of bonds, which is about $100 million, we anticipated the interest rate to be somewhat higher than what we issued that at. Over the next few years, how much money do you anticipate that's going to not generate, but actually be a pretty substantial cost savings?
Can't recall off the top of my head, but it's several million. I'll be happy to bring it back for the minutes.
I
But it
think
did
that
help
I think that's
significantly.
fairly significant because we budgeted for about what 2.5%, something like that, and it came in at 1.5%. So that's a huge difference over that many years too.
Yeah, it helped make because debt service, just like everything else, got pounded over their head with an anvil, mainly in interest earnings. Two things have helped with that: the internet sales, property tax collections are better than we had feared, and adequate facilities is doing well. And then the other one was the bond. The bond saved us, and I hate to say, but I think it was over $500,000 a year.
Yeah, it's a
Over a
substantial
20-year
number.
period. But I'd have to look at that to be sure, but right off the top of my head, that's what I believe it's somewhere in that mark, give or take.
And when we talk about these numbers, that's what we said. Right now, it looks a lot better than we had projected. And obviously, David always is going to project towards the negative and we want it to. We want to be conservative. We want at least one more month, being November and then also December, to really look at. And the reason we say that is because we don't want it to be fluky. Some of the sales tax we've got, and again, sales tax goes to our debt service, but still some of it is because Nashville's been more shut down, and that's been a benefit to us. And also, so many people have been shopping from home and doing things like that, that we've, thanks to the County Mayors Association, are recouping really big numbers in that part. If it continues like that, that's great, but our concern would be, hey, we plan on it, and then a month and a half from now, when we look at December's numbers, oh, it's a downturn, and we've kind of committed to something we shouldn't have. So we want to make sure, like I said, that we can do the COLA, that we can do it the right way, and that we're projecting the funds in the proper manner.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think
Yes, sir.
that our finance director is being very conservative. We need to be. There's a lot of uncertainty still. We don't know what's going to happen. And you got to remember, when we first budgeted at the beginning of this fiscal year, we budgeted about $2 million worth of reserves.
More than a typical year.
Then we were going to eat, and we don't need to get throw caution to the wind right now. We need to make sure that revenue balances out. But I will tell you that I'm a strong proponent of raises for our employees, even if we have to wait until the end of this fiscal year. I really believe we need to compensate them and give them at least somewhere around a 4% overall, because they're working hard. We've got a lot of employees who have been struggling like everybody else through COVID, and we've got to keep morale up, and we've got to retain our good employees, and I think that's important. And you see that, David, being a department head, that's a challenge sometimes.
We're having a lot of challenges. Even now, we're still having challenges. We're having challenges of obtaining and retaining trained individuals. There's a lot of untrained individuals, but the trained individuals is not available.
And-
We didn't
Mr.
benefit
Chairman?
from unemployment as well as we thought we would have.
Not in the
honestly.
trained in
And
this
we-
county.
we've got our sheriff here tonight, Mr. Chairman. He may want to speak to retention and morale and so forth.
Yes, sir.
One of the reasons I came is just, I had heard that this might be on the table. But I just wanted to say that, our people, and not just the sheriff's employees, but, EMS, EMA, all the county employees, highway, they're essential. I mean, they've worked every day. My people have worked every day, and I know EMS have. And to date, I could not tell you how many people I have had to put up somewhere because of COVID. I got on the way here, got notified of another one just today. Yesterday it was two employees. So every day I'm having somebody that's having to go out because of COVID. But I just wanted to say anything that you can do would be appreciative to the employees. They're coming every day. They're working every day. I go through and I tell them I appreciate everything they've done for this county and for the sheriff's office. But sometimes for them to have something in their pocket kind of means more than just me saying, I appreciate you. So I would appreciate anything that the commission can do to give to our employees.
Yes, sir.
Amen, Sheriff. And I want to say this, and I think the sheriff hit the nail on the head. We talk about our first responders and the people who are out there on the first line, but we all couldn't do it without support staff like you, Jessica, and our attorney's office and everybody, because we're all Sumner County team, and it takes all of us. So we've all been through a lot, and I think the sheriff's right. We've had to combat outbreaks in this building and try to keep people safe, and then the public at times resents being told what to do and having to wear a mask, and it's difficult for employees. And we're trying to keep this a safe environment, so when the public comes here, they feel like they can come here and this building's got some integrity. They're not going to be exposed to COVID, and they can come and do what they need to do the county business. So it's been a trying time, and our employees have gone, all of them, and I think we could all agree on this, above and beyond. Mm-hmm. And we need to personally thank them and tell them what a great job they've done.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And Sheriff, I appreciate your words too. Obviously, things are looking good right now, and hopefully they'll continue to go that way. Go ahead, Dave.
Jimmy, to go ahead and go through the cost end of what it would cost for 1% at this point.
Let's wait until,
Okay.
unless y'all want to, but I
Give you
think
a
we'd rather
roundabout
just kind
idea
of
where we're at, or.
wait till next month so we can keep seeing good things. If you got the number right there.
Oh, we have these other two sheets tell you the cost per.
Yep, go
per
ahead.
one. Because, right now the elected officials did get a raise and a few other individuals. If everybody other than the elected got a raise, for instance, in the general fund, the total cost for 1% for the entire year means if you gave a 1% now and retroed it to the beginning of the year would be, with benefits, $430,837. When you look at that, there's a couple other things to keep in mind. One is, for instance, direct grant access comes from the state. That's usually reimbursed. We'd have to determine if they could. Also, you may want to look, do you want to include, like ECC, they've already got some raises, but you may want to include them. But they have extra money in their line items that could capture this. Same thing EMS, they had some raises on the paramedics, but that was more cost adjustments and cost of living. And then if you go look over at the highway, the estimates without the elected is somewhere around about $29,000. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the overall cost for a 1% raise for the entire year compared to the revenue now. Thank you.
So when we look at the full four, we're talking probably about 1.6, 1.7 million, realistically. So that's a number. Anybody have anything else they want to say? Discussion from anybody? All right. Other old business is sheriff's office mechanic, that's already been approved. Aaron said he's gonna hire in January for that, so we're just kinda keeping it docketed until he decides to get it.
Do you want to go ahead and run, you docketed it from last month, we got the amounts, you want to go ahead and run the resolution through to
Yes,
find
sir.
it?
Yep.
If you look on page 6, because it's only gonna be for January forward, the total of it would be 41,000 with benefits, $929 is the estimated amount. That's what you would need to send on forward to the commission for January forward on the mechanic.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, sir. And ma'am. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously, and again, this is the one where they're gonna hire in January, so we're good. New business,
Does the commission get free oil changes for that?
Get in line.
again, we're just.
And,
They have time to get
and
here.
free room and board in the jail, right?
Shouldn't say anything.
Planning and Development Services, these are proposed amendments to the department's fee schedule. Josh, would you like to address that before we go?
Yes, sir. So this went to the planning commission, technically it went twice. The first time it went was in September, presented this to them, then had some technical difficulties with the screen, and so I felt like I needed to show it to them again. So I'm big on boring the planning commission to death, that's great to tell you. But they actually approved it back in September. So what this is, there's two categories of fees that this is dealing with. The first category is existing fees, and in your packet there's some fees that are listed that, a couple that come to mind are things like minor subdivision plats. Now, I'm not, without getting too in the weeds on you guys, what that is basically 2 lots or less that come to the county for approval. We researched back to 1995. In 1995, we charged $50 for a minor subdivision plat. In 1995. 25 years ago. Today, we charge $50 for a minor subdivision plat. It's exactly the same. And so what we would be seeking to do on ones like that is to increase that to 150, which would just kind of extrapolate what kind of like a cost of living almost, you might say there, and would really be more realistic on what staff time goes into those kinds of fees. And so, because that's always the choice you are confronted with, do we use property tax and other revenue to fund what I do for a living, or do you put it on the developer as much as possible? And in general, it's a fee-based service, so that's what we're trying to line that up. So that's the first category of fees. The second category is in your packet. It's toward the end of the list of fees. They're new fees, and so what those new fees are, you guys may remember when I brought the new zoning resolution to you all. I talked about we don't know what to do sometimes. I think it's kind of with the old zoning resolution, we really had a lot of situations that we dealt with that we really didn't have a process to handle. Well, now we have a process to handle those things. And so there's a lot of new fees that we're creating as you look through that list, one of which comes to mind is something we call an accessory dwelling unit permit. And so what that is like granny flats and that kind of thing. Up until July, you couldn't do that in Sumner County, in unincorporated Sumner County. It was illegal. You couldn't put a mother-in-law suite in your house unless you had a specific hardship and had a doctor's note and went through this process with the BZA, which may or may not have been legal, frankly. So we emulated some other counties, Williamson County, Rutherford County, City of Hendersonville, processes they have. So we have a process in place now to deal with that, but it takes a lot of staff time to make sure their septic permit is right, to make sure that their setbacks are right, to make sure that everything about what they're wanting to do meets all the requirements of the zoning code. And so there's a number of fees in there that are basically, those are new processes that the new zoning code has put in place that we're basically, they take a lot of staff time. We can either do them for free, which is what we're doing right now. The member of the public comes in, we don't charge them anything because we don't have any authorization to do so. This is to get authorization to charge for, and we try to set those fees at something that's reasonably realistic for the amount of time that goes into it. And by and large, that's my time we're talking about. I'm the only professional planner on staff here at the county. And so those are the two categories of fees. I don't think there's anything that's too unreasonable. In my pile of information over there, David and his staff asked us to put together some budget estimates on, if we did this, what would this generate? We tried to do some relatively conservative numbers, like on the minor subdivision plats. We did 95 of those this year. And so I budgeted for 60 for next year, basically. And so overall, we estimate this will have a budget impact somewhere in the neighborhood of about $28,000. We're not talking about a huge amount of money here or anything like that. It's just, like I said, recouping my time that I'm spending working on a lot of different application types. If y'all look through the list there and have any questions about what any of these specific things are, I'll be glad to try to get you an answer.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I really mean this. I'm so grateful, all of you, passing this subdivision regulation update. It was a disaster what we were dealing with. Josh has done a phenomenal job, and this is just one example. I want you to understand this. If I had a hardship and I had to keep my mother, God bless her soul, she's not here, but I needed a place to keep her, I'd have to go to the BZA. I'd have to get a conditional use permit. That made it extremely difficult for my family, but not only my family, Sumner County and our planning staff, because what it would do, it would give a 2-year window that I had that opportunity to keep that. After that time, I'd have to go back to the BZA and go through the whole thing again, over and over again. The problem is, after a while, people forget about things, and then it's on the staff. And so you've got this secondary house on a one lot of record, and then it goes dormant. They don't know. I mean, what are you going to do? You can't make you tear the building down. So you've got somebody out there that's doing something illegal, and they can't keep up with it. Right now, this is 100% better for the public and 100% better for our staff that keeps up with it. And just everything in that subdivision regulation is modern and new. And I wanted to bring this to your attention. You know, I've talked to you, Josh has talked to me. The next step in this is not only a very modest fee structure, but we need to do an update. We already have a land use plan across the entire county. We need to do an update of that plan, and we're in good shape for smart growth and making sure that everybody is playing on the same level playing field. And you might want to add to that, Josh, but I think that has gone a long way for the integrity of our planning department, because what people want, they want to know the rules, and they want to be able to be treated equitably with everybody else. They don't want a high roller to come in and be treated differently than an individual family with their mother or something like that. So you might want to address that, Josh.
Exactly, and that's been the goal overall. We started with the subdivision regulations with the planning commission back a year or so ago. Did the zoning resolution after that. As I'm talking about to y'all here today, what we're looking to do is really update that fee schedule and kind of bring it in line where it needs to be, and that reflects the services that we're providing. And like Anthony said, what we'd like to do in the coming months is work with you guys to potentially get some funding to look at updating our comprehensive land use plan. It's not super old. There's some places that have some that are older, but it's about 10 or 12 years old. There's been a lot that's changed. Like I was talking about earlier, Highway 109 has been constructed and finished out in that time period. A whole lot of other things have changed that we need to take a look at comprehensively across the county. But none of that's before y'all here tonight. All that's before you is just these fee schedule amendments. And like
Well, I just wanted to take an opportunity to brag on you and let them know what you
I
got.
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
the bromance speech was awesome.
Hey,
Mr. Foster.
Gotta
you
do
had
it.
something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh, if there is such thing as a average typical house these days, what would your estimate be on what the increased cost with these new fees would be to a developer for an average house?
Well, it depends on how they're coming in, but let's just say that I've got a 100-acre farm, right, or something, and I've got it along the road. I want to cut off an acre and sell it to my kid. That's a one lot minor subdivision plat. That fee would go from $50 to $150.
And that would be the only increased fee?
That would be basically it on that one.
How about
Yes,
if
sir.
a builder just wanted to build an individual house? So that's the same thing, it only increased from 50 to...
And so what we're talking about here, by and large, is when we're talking about the subdivision process, is the creation of brand new lots that don't have anything on them. Then with the other stuff like the accessory dwelling units and that kind of stuff is a little different, where you're building onto a lot that already has a house on it.
Is there anything in here for like curbage or sewers or roads or anything like that that would be an increase to the developer from?
No, sir, no, sir, not anything like that. There's no policy stuff in here. Like I said, this is just, these are just fees to help recoup some of the expenses. And like I said, I'm fond of boring the planning commission to death. I'll be glad to bore the budget committee. We can go through them all if y'all want to. I'm not being sarcastic there.
As somebody that's already done it, I don't know if you necessarily want to. If you're in a hurry, I'll put that, yeah. But obviously entertain a motion. I've got it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Josh does a fantastic job. To make it easy for everybody, this is the simple stuff that we've already done that we just haven't updated in almost 30 years. So it kind of gets us a little bit more modern on that and some of the things we wanted to do. Any more discussion, anybody?
Mr. Chairman, when
Yes.
when will those fees go into effect? Will they be in January and pass through the full commission, or?
If you guys,
Whatever we
and I
do.
need to make sure with David that it's okay, but I mean, if you guys are all right upon adoption, the way we did the resolution, I think with the planning commission is upon adoption, it would go into effect immediately, because we're providing the service already. And so it can either be continued to be provided for free or start recouping some costs. But up to you all.
Immediately, because we really need the money.
Yeah, and that's.
We need the money to cover existing costs.
Well, and this was also some of what we had planned when we got the engineer, that these were some of the ways we would help pay for the engineer. So we're just getting that finally going. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimously on the commission. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Josh. Go ahead, Ms. DeWitt. Nonprofit Allocation Committee recommendations.
Well, we unfolded our first go of doing a nonprofit allocation panel. We met all day on Wednesday, thanks to Jessica and David for getting that all set up. And we had time in that scenario or in that setup for the nonprofits to really come and spend some more time with a group to tell their story. We spent 15 minutes with each of the agencies that requested funding. And so after they came and made their presentations, we had a working lunch and came to the recommended allocation. So the $75,000 is what we set aside during the budget process. That amount of money was determined based on nonprofit charitable organizations that we had funded in the past, and then leaving a little additional funding in there because we were putting in this process the Sumner County Museum, which would not typically, so let's say next year, if we use the same process next year, we would leave the museum along with other civic nonprofits like tourism and economic development Forward Sumner, things that we typically handle during the regular budget cycle, and save just the charitables for this panel review process. But it went really well, and I'm really pleased with the recommendations that we have to allocate that $75,000. 4 of those agencies listed are new recipients. That includes the museum, Sumner County CASA, page 13. Is what you're looking for?
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. CASA had received funding in the past. The museum had received funding in the past, but not for a while. Same with CASA, Habilitation and Training Services, and the Sumner Spay Neuter Alliance. So this is our recommendation. I'm going to give you one other handout, and this is just to plant seeds for next budget cycle. I really did a deep, here, you can pass it over to Leah's table if you wouldn't mind here. There's 2 of them there. Oh, can I have one back? No. I know what it says. So I'm fine. I've got it back. Okay, fine. What I did is I really wanted to dig in and look at how Sumner County compares relative to some of our local counties in terms of contributions. And so I flipped this to the kind of the second page in the packet, and that shows you a comparison between Sumner's on the far right side, Williamson, Rutherford, and Wilson County, and looking at just the charitable nonprofit contributions that they make in their counties compared to what we have done. This is a fiscal year 2020, so ending June 30th of 2020. The little number at the very top of each of those boxes is the number of residents in that county, so estimating somewhere in that 191,000 for Sumner County. So that's a comparison. The first page, if you kind of flip back, the page that I flipped over, this goes to that charitable, the civic organizations versus the nonprofits. So this is where you're going to see tourism, other types of government extension programs, like in Sumner County we have a relationship or a contract with Tennessee Rehabilitation Center. We have a state forestry bill, the Resource Authority, etc. So finding this information on this, what is essentially the first page of the packet, where you've got the blue line and the green line toward the bottom, it's a little bit harder to really dig into those details and find that in the other county budgets. Like in yellow is highlighted rural fire for Wilson. I just couldn't find it anywhere in their budget, but I'm assuming they have some line items. Below all of that are just some other categories that are different than your standard government offices, like all of our elected offices and all the others that David just went over with looking at the COLA numbers, things. I mean, some of these are included there, but you can see what our total allocations are for things like libraries. Some other counties have the Sports Authority or Parks Department. We contribute to water lines, which most counties don't. So it's not a fully detailed, doesn't capture everything, but I really just wanted to share this for informational purposes. And maybe highlight an area where we could do better. You know, I will advocate for nonprofits because I do believe that all of them are providing a life-saving service to the residents that they serve. And I really do think they're critically important, and I do think that the government has a role in supporting their operations. So, in any case, it's not a complete analysis. Don't hold me to every penny on it, but I've done my best to make it as accurate as possible. So on the last 2 pages that are in the packet, there I just looked at locally, looked at our Sumner County contribution numbers compared to the city of Gallatin and the city of Hendersonville. So page 3 in the packet is again kind of that the civic contributions, and then the very last page you'd see the charitable nonprofit contributions. So
I'm gonna go out on a
I'll
limb.
let you,
I will go out on a limb and say this might be a little more in-depth than what we've done before in the past. I'm confident in saying that, but I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good
And,
job.
Justin, everybody, I think we can honestly look at people and say, we did our due diligence for why we're signing it, and this will obviously make it a lot better than how we've done it in the past. So thank you very much.
step in the right direction.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Who, did you put this together? Or
The analysis?
did you tell you all of these 4 pages?
I did all that, yeah.
I,
So blame it on me.
I joke a little bit sometimes, to keep the ball rolling. But I've been here too long, obviously, and but to what Chris said, I mean, we have talked about sitting down and putting something together like this line by line, and being able, and as much work as you've obviously put into this and checking all these county budgets, Lord God, you need to get a better hobby, but so great work, unbelievable great work.
They are all big, long budgets.
And
I
I-
mean, there's just no getting around it.
I just have a question, it's not about this, but it's
Sure.
for, and it's maybe for the mayor to check into, but what I'm super curious about is, based on our populations, I'm obviously always supported our transit alliance, but, like we're putting in the same amount of money as Rutherford does with double the people. I mean, I wonder why that is.
Just what they assess to be in the group, so they try to make it all even. Because it really affects us all the same, but yeah, they don't, like
I mean, I'm 100%
Mid-Cumberland and GNRC, they base it on population, some groups don't, because that's not a huge number.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Agreed,
Um,
just curious.
But I was noticing this, and this is, it's a great work, Deanne, and you look down through here, and, you know, and you look at the population and what is, the contribution is to these nonprofits, we're at 49 cents. It looks like us in Williamson County is the cheapy counties. Well, let's just be honest, it is what it is. It looks like Rutherford and Wilson is very generous, because they're like, Rutherford's $1.64 per person, and Wilson's $1.30. We're at 49, and Williamson at 93 cents. So it's really good work, and I think it gives you some insight as to what we're thinking. But you know, I think, Paul, and you've been around a long time, we were at a point at one time before we went through the Great Recession that we were contributing a lot more to nonprofits. And that really got whittled down to nothing during that time, and I don't think it's really ever recovered, if you
2008,
remember.
you're right.
Yeah.
You know, going back historically, we had quite a bit.
Yes,
quite
and
a-
so that's really what happened to us, I think. I think at one point in time, we were right there with everybody else.
And the last thing I'll say on that is, a lot of the nonprofits we support perform functions that if they weren't there, we would end up having to pay somebody to do. So we selfishly get benefit out of it, even though we're donating to it. We need to move this forward with the motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any passes unanimously. Put on the budget. Thank you very much. Fantastic work. And we'll obviously be putting that in everybody's packet, so they'll have it. All right. Education.
Nothing to note, they normal.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Moves forward unanimously. Apologize. Appropriations. Entertain a motion to group and approve.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any dissension? None noted, passed unanimously. Transfers?
The first one's the payroll item. It's been discussed before. I think it's the Portland Library wanted to give an additional raise to the assistant library director. The rest of them are non-salary line items, nothing really out of the ordinary.
And just for everybody's benefit, on the library one, we asked her to go to the library board as their authoritative source and make sure they were good with it because this would reset some of their pay scale, and they approved her doing this, so. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? We're good, passed unanimously. Anything crazy on the refunds, Ms. Denham? All right, make a motion, group and approve. Thank you, sir. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds good, passed unanimously. One more. Thank you, sir. Thanks, y'all.
Here, keep that in your pile.
You're gonna meet with the lady that's gonna come and meet
Text
with
to get his
stakeholders
number.
about the
He said
courthouse
Carter.
furnishings.
Oh, thank
As soon as he gets me
You know
number,
what?
I'll text
That
him.
one, Jimmy, I don't know.
Bruce says he at the IDB board.
No, I just.